Hey everybody, it's Stove Talk with Matt. Came up with a slight variation of a rocket stove that we're going to test today. And the concept is similar. It's a hybrid between a rocket stove and what's called a Sidor stove. And the idea, what's different about it is the air hole is going to be here, but you're going to load the wood like the Sidor stove. Load the wood up top here like a hopper, like a coal hopper, and it just has a, well, you know what, if it works I'll break it down. I'll break it all down so you can see how, and I'll film it while you can't see the hole down there, but the idea is everything burns across the bottom, so the stick should last about 3 times as long as, say, putting them in a batch box where everything burns at once. It should only burn across the bottom. That's the hope. And if this works, then you could, this larger square here can make this hopper, 2 feet longer, could fill, or 2 feet higher, and fill it with hundreds and hundreds of sticks. Try to increase the burn time. We'll see, right? Okay, everything's loaded from the top. We'll put the bricks back on top, and it's important with this sort of design. We have to warm this chimney. We have to prime this chimney with this fire starter and maybe some paper. Put it down here. If I just light this, of course it's just going to come back up in my face. This is going to become the chimney. It's not going to just magically go into a cold chimney. This design absolutely needs some draft priming. It's hard to do this with a camera. And if you drop it down too soon, it'll just go out. You have to make sure it's, I've been through that a bunch of times. It's really got to be going before you drop it down. There you go. And it should just drop by itself, hopefully. Alright, you got to get this. The Ignito is the best brand. It's super expensive, but for those little squares, they just go out. This is some kind of chemical or something. I need these for my stove test. You got to really let this go also before you knock it in, or it'll go out. You got to really let it get it going. Let's see if that's stayed lit down there. Yep, there we go. That'll warm the chimney nicely. We're all set. Okay, we're just about 45 seconds in and we have no smoke. That's good. I mean, she's acting like a rocket stove. I put this, actually really helps the draw, just having this 2-foot piece of insulated chimney I put on top, because I didn't make a real long riser. Let's see what's going on down here. Looks pretty good. Like down on a piece of ice, man. This is painful and cold. Oh, nasty. Okay. Well, I don't have any mortar, of course, so some smoke's going to come out the sides until the draft really gets going well. Still no smoke. Okay, guys, let me show you what's going on in here. Ow. That's a rocket. Uh-oh, I don't want that to fall in. That would be a disaster. It's kind of, I opened it too soon. It wants to come up. Most of it's rocketing in the riser, but let me close it up and we'll test it in 2 minutes. Okay, I put some bigger sticks on. What's coming up the riser is good as no smoke. Now, it's using the hopper as a chimney because I have a crack at the top because I think there's a big piece of wood. I can't close it all the way. That's just normal. I mean, the idea would be to have this more mortared up. It wouldn't be able to go up. Well, you'd have everything mortared except you'd have a solid top. You wouldn't have individual bricks. You'd have like a piece of metal on a gasket or something that could seal off pretty well. It's a rocket stove. You can see where it's going down there. Just have the riser's just right next to the hopper. So the idea here to see if this is a success, how do we know if it's a success? Well, now we can close everything up as tight as we can. There's no mortar here. And in a minute, if it stops using the top, see that smoke coming out there? If it stops trying to use the hopper as a chimney with that smoke coming out, especially since there's no mortar, then it's definitely a success. So we'll give it a few minutes and see how we're doing. There's still no smoke on the riser. Watch how important that extra chimney is. I just took the extra chimney off. Still raging, but no smoke. But watch how the draft increases dramatically. See all that smoke pouring out? I bet when I put that piece back on, it'll go away. Watch. Well, let me just keep it live. 10 seconds. Piece is on. Nothing. Just put it on. Nothing. So that piece there, I mean, that just increases the pull and the draft by probably 20%. Nothing at all coming out the top. The chimney is 70% of everybody's setup, yet nobody talks about it. When they build stoves, the Russians don't talk about it. It's all assumed like everybody has the same chimney setup and everybody has a different chimney setup. It's 70% of the importance of the whole system. So you get no smoke. You get an insulated piece that's 8 to 10 feet long. It'll pull anything through once it heats up. Like a Russian stove that goes up and down and up and down. Insulated chimney through the middle of the house, or not on the outside of the house where it gets ice cold, will pull anything through, like a bench stove, whatever it may be. So I've talked about this before. I just made that insulated piece. It's stovepipe 6-inch surrounded by 8-inch like dryer vent, cheap galvanized, and then you stuff the space in between with you could stuff it with mineral wool if it's not going to get wet. Outside you could stuff it with perlite to keep it insulated. I still have no smoke. It's almost out. That's all I got left. Well, got some sticks here. Considering the stuff burning up the front there, it's pretty good that there's not smoke pouring out. It's not using that as a chimney. It seems like once that riser gets super hot, and that gets super hot, I still have no smoke, then it's always going to choose to go through the hole once everything gets hot versus coming up in your face. I just took the top off and threw a few extra sticks in. That's all I had left. So that's what makes something a rocket stove. It's putting the riser extremely close to the firebox or the hopper or the batch box. So the riser, everything to everybody is a rocket stove. It's a rocket stove. When a lot of what people are saying on the internet, it's not a rocket stove. they call everything a rocket stove. A rocket stove needs a riser very, very, very close to the firebox, and the riser then pulls tremendously and creates that rocket. And at the end, you kind of know it's a success when it's not using this as a chimney. It's not using, you know, one of the big issues with a lot of people that do the J rocket stoves is, you know, the stove sometimes wants to use that first part of the J as a chimney. And I'm not sure how many people will be completely honest once they spend all the time to build a giant J system with a barrel, but there's a lot of smoke that comes up into the house from time to time in some systems. That's, to me, the real advantage of it, a batch box with a door. But, you know, it's a success because there's no smoke that wants to come up, and I have the whole thing completely open. So the idea is once these bricks, it takes about 20 minutes for them to get super hot. Once they do, then it's going to draw. It's not going to come up in your face any longer. Okay, so this is basically it. It's like a J, but the air goes, the idea is just to keep the air in a small hole there that just goes across a very short distance and finds the riser just whatever it might be, about 10 inches away. So everything burns along the bottom, and you get a slower burn than everything burning at once in a batch box. So you would, if this works, I mean it does work, but I don't know how. I'm going to try to expand this into a real stove that somebody could use, or even try to use a barrel. The idea would be to build this hopper up very, very tall or very, very long, and basically almost with a slider, a piece of metal, have everything slide towards that opening in there. So let me just see that to make these are standard fire bricks, 9 by 4.5 by 2.5. They're really great because they're all symmetrical, and you can make a really great rocket stove chimney just by stacking 4. It's really easy with the standard thick fire brick. And then you just, you know, it's a staggered, it's just another 4. It's a piece of cake. It's just a piece of cake to build a riser with your standard fire brick. I can build this stove in just about, you know, maybe 10 minutes. Okay, I've broken down the riser, and risers are just left a little bit higher so you can see what's going on here. I don't even know what's going on under here. Let's see. Okay, so the stove's all up to this point, it's basically just one stove. You know, it all connects together. So let me break it down a little bit more and let's see how it all goes together. With this stove, you're going to need a few halves. Not many. I don't know. Maybe 5, 7, or 8 or 9 halves. Not less, probably. These fire bricks are easily cut with a cheap tile wet saw. A cheap, you know, you can get them at Harbor Freight for about $40. A cheap tile wet saw. So, okay, let me continue to break it down, and I'll show you just you know how the wood and the gases get into the riser, the flame, in other words. So this is the only. There's the air hole again, air hole, and then the idea here just to get into the riser is just this. It's just a half brick. No, it's 2 layers. It's two bricks by a half. 2 bricks by a half into the start of the riser. And the idea behind this stove is here's the air hole. It's only 1 brick, 9 inches from the air hole to the start of the riser. So everything's going to want to burn across this one channel. And it's still, well, this was burning too over here. But the idea, if you extended this hopper out 3 feet, you just filled it with hundreds and hundreds of sticks, and you ran a, still recording it, okay? This ain't no professional production. You ran a, you know, like a piece of sheet metal, like a slide, down to funnel everything here. You know, you could funnel hundreds of pieces, like a hopper, like a coal hopper, and everything should burn across. It would get you an extra Should get you an extra 20-30 minutes of burn time over, say, like a batch box where everything just goes up at once. And that's the real advantage of a J rocket stove, that only the bottom part is burning. I mean, the true rocket stove, even though you get some smoke in the house, is a J. Nothing drafts as good as a J. Nothing's like it's a reverse siphon. It's thermal siphon, and this incorporates some of the principles of the J, and also again of the Sidor stove. I tried to contact them and said, hey, can I talk about your stove? And they're like, come back to us when you have more subscribers. I'm like, really? So anyway, I don't think I'm violating their patent here, just stacking bricks in the backyard. But I did copy a bit of how they do it. It's a pretty ingenious, great looking stove. It's called Sidor. One more breakdown step and then I'll show you the base. It's always funny when you get to the base, you go, that's it? That little tiny, it always looks like nothing when you get to the base. But see, how to get to the riser there, it's just one brick across. It's 2 bricks high, but you just put one across, and that's it. This is only half a brick, 4.5. And then, once you start laying across, it just stays in place. Of course, you're going to make this for yourself. You want to use mortar. We'll have a mortar discussion some other time. So that the air hole just one half by 1 brick. And this is a little bit higher too. I don't know. It might be better to make something a little bit higher to get into the riser. I don't know. That maybe would take all the smoke from coming up, make it a little bit bigger, then it becomes a little bit more the size of like a batch box port. I don't know. Okay, I can't go any lower because these coals are still very hot. It's just the base plus 1 layer. And you can tell what the base would look like. You make your base first, then just start staggering everything. Always with your cracks staggered over other cracks, never with the cracks lining up. Use halves where you need to. There's your air opening. There's the exact same opening into the riser. Piece of cake. Even with mortar, you do this whole stove in an hour. And we'll talk about, well, what are the possible uses of this piece of shit? I don't know. This is just to see if it would draw properly across like the Sidor stove. I don't know if there's a use for just this, because the barrel, if you put a barrel across the riser, it'll go too far into your firebox. So if somebody wanted to use this as a rocket stove, you'd have to test it. I'd have to test it where I'd have to have the riser farther away so I could get the barrel over top without the barrel going on top of the firebox, because it loads through the top like a hopper. So I'll test that sometime, I guess. Oh yeah, I don't want to. I'm just gonna let this sit. It's safe because we had an ice storm. There's just ice and wet everywhere. Obviously, if we had 2.5 months of no rain, I wouldn't just let these coals sit. But there's it's fine. Ice is everywhere.